From 1955 to 1974, Volkswagen sold a car called the Karmann Ghia. It was Volkswagen's sportier model in that time period, and it was a pretty good success, selling 445,000 times. It had the flat 4 engines found in the Beetles, which took it from 0 to 60 in a pretty slow 28 seconds.
The Volkswagen Karmann Ghia is the most economical sports car you can buy. It's just not the most powerful.
But at least it was 15 seconds more fun than its competitors. Karmann was the factory that it was made in, and Ghia is the company that designed it. Meanwhile, Porsche were thriving with their 911 and 912, but they wanted a cheaper entry model, and Volkswagen wanted an update to the Karmann Ghia that was getting more outdated and slower than its competitors in the mid-60s. Volkswagen and Porsche had been friends for a while and still are, ever since Ferdinand Porsche had designed the original Beetle in the late 30s. Together, they realized that they could make a car that could help both companies. An entry-level Porsche to get more customers that is cheap because it's made of mostly Volkswagen parts, and for Volkswagen to have a new sports car. They agreed and development would start. Porsche didn't want it to just be a discount 911, they wanted it to be a whole different car. Instead of having the engine hanging from the back or the front, they made it mid-engined. This had previously been seen in Porsche's endurance racing cars, but not in the road cars. It was not only good for weight distribution, but also for practicality, with both a trunk and a frunk to put your things in, which practically doubled the storage and made the 914 have an edge over its competitors. Porsche's new designer, Ferdinand Piëch, grandson of Ferdinand Porsche, was the designer of the 914. The design was fantastic, almost aesthetically tight, with toned-down lines, pop-up headlights and a Targa arch with a removable roof that when not in use was placed on top of the mid-mounted engine and boot in the long rear section. The construction was based on a torsionally rigid box, with thick thresholds, a flat floor and a marked central tunnel. The only real issue in the design was what's known as the hell hole among 914 fans, which was located under the battery in the rear right. There, in a sort of dimple in the metal, water and acidic battery material often accumulated and ate through the metal, which damaged the fundamental structure of the car and the rear suspension console. Speaking of suspension, the entire front suspension came from the 911, with Volkswagen brakes, and the chassis was a steel unibody. The Porsche 914 was a pretty safe car, with front and rear deformation zones. The only issue in terms of safety was that they placed the fuel tank in the front, right in front of the steering column. They did this for further weight distribution, which by the way was 47% front, 53% rear with driver and fluids. The 914 came with 1.7, 1.8 and 2-liter flat 4s and a 2-liter flat 6 found in the 911T. With the flat 6 it came with a different name, the 914-6. They all made from 74 to 110 horsepower, but it was all the car really needed because it was very light, coming in at 940 to 985 kilograms, or about 2,100 pounds. Through the 5-speed manual from the 911 or the 4-speed semi-automatic transmissions to the rear wheels, it got from 0 to 60 in as little as 8.7 seconds in the top models. Which might not seem fast for today's standards, but it was pretty swift for a car that cheap at the time. The 914 was unveiled in 1969 as the 1970 model year, and it had the flat 6 and flat 4 for the first 4 years. It was a pretty decent success, selling 114,000 times in its 8-year production run, and became Porsche's at the time best-selling car. What's funny is that it was sold in Volkswagen dealers, right next to the super basic Beetle. The reviews were mixed, with some loving it and some hating it. It also won the Import Car of the Year in 1970 by Motor Trend magazine. The new price was pretty reasonable, and it was somewhat close to what a new MX-5 costs today, adjusted for inflation. In 1970, Porsche entered the 914 into Le Mans, got 6th overall and won its category. But in 1976, Volkswagen and Porsche called the end of production for the 914. Volkswagen went back to making family cars like the new Passat, but they kept a bit of sportiness with the Scirocco coming out 2 years before the 914 production ended. Porsche also came out with a 914 replacement a few years later, the 924, which also was a Volkswagen and Porsche collab, which saw the relationship between the two companies heal again, after Volkswagen's head Heinrich Nordhoff died during the 914's development, which caused chaos in the 914 program. The 914 is now a classic, and low mileage examples can sell for 5 or even 6 figures. Thanks a lot for watching. Feel free to subscribe for more videos like this. Thanks a lot for 400 subscribers. Let's get to 500. Also, feel free to comment what car you would like to see on my channel next, and I might make a video about it.